Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and I'm delighted to be joined by Chris McAway. Not so delighted to be talking about a 2-1 defeat at Easter Road. Let us know your thoughts in the comments field. We will be covering that second half performance in respect of the transformation when you compare it to the first half, which was really, really poor. And the fact that at 82 minutes, it looks as though we have pulled a draw out of a very, very tricky tie, only for the goal to be chopped off. That's the big talking point. We've got to praise Celtic the second half, and it feels as though we were hard done by, Chris, because I'm looking at that and it's not a definitive. I mean, the angle must be a different angle they're looking at, because in terms of the TV angles that I've seen, there is nothing definitive to suggest that ball in its entirety was across that line when Johnson crossed it into the box. What was your thoughts?
Yeah, well, first of all, I do want to give Hibs credit for the win. Fair play to them. I didn't appreciate some of the tactics.
Well, I'll tell you, you're a
throughout the
better
game.
man than I, because
Well,
I'm not giving them credit because I feel hard done by me. It was a
well,
goal all day long.
yeah, but I'm going to come to that in a second. But yeah, your credit's where it's due. I think we lost that game in the first half, and Hibs played well, but I didn't like some of their tactics in that game. I've never seen. They spent more time in the deck in Captain's Birdseye. To be honest, it was just a lot of dark arts in play. Anyway, going on to the decision. My understanding, and anybody can feel free to correct me here, but my understanding is that unless VAR, or this Poundland variant of VAR that we have in this country, unless that can prove beyond reasonable doubt the decision one way or another, then I thought the default position was to back the on-field decision, which at that time was to give a goal. I've seen it multiple times. I think it's tight, but I cannot say definitively in any of the angles shown that ball is out of play before the cross comes in. So for me, that should have been a goal. And it's a goal that our performance in the second half deserved, because we were far better in that second half than we were in the first half. But you don't win football games over 45 minutes, you win them over 90. And I don't want to put everything onto that decision, because there were a lot of poor performances that contributed to that result today from a Celtic standpoint. Credit to the manager. He addressed that at half-time rightly. I thought that showed strong management to do that, and I thought he made the right changes at that point. I think we did see a different performance because of players like Schlupp. I thought Jota was heavily involved and very positively. Very, very unlucky with his chance. I thought he did everything right. Some people have maybe said he should have passed it to Kuhn. I've got a different view, because Kuhn for me was far too static in his position, and I'm not sure that he gave Jota the right option to cross. So I've got no issue. He'd beaten the keeper, so for me he was perfectly entitled to take the shot, and credit to the defender for saving it. A defender, by the way, who I'm not sure should have remained on the park, because there was a real bad challenge in that second half on one of our players as well. But look, everybody's entitled to a bad day at the office. You take your medicine. You don't want to lose a league over the course of one match. You do it over a campaign, and we've given ourselves this buffer because we've been the best team this campaign. So it's a sore one, and we'll feel it today. But ultimately, I don't think it will derail us momentum, and certainly it shouldn't. And it's now the challenges on the players and the manager to make sure it doesn't derail us.
No, one result won't, Chris. Absolutely, one result will not derail what Celtic are going for, which is a treble. And in terms of a reaction after a game of football that you've lost, it's all about not having a knee jerk. I look at the halftime changes made by Brendan Rodgers; they were bold. We won the second half. We absolutely dominated the second half. I would ask anybody in the comments, and I'm going to ask you, Chris, in the second half, did anybody not perform? Because I would say that wasn't the case. So what they did is they stood up at half-time, like we said they had to do, and they've gone out there in the second half. Not only have they won that particular half of football, for me, they scored 2 goals. So, you can sit and go on about poor refereeing decisions, etc., but that is going to be a talking point, and it needs to be laboured. And we labour it when we win games, not just when we drop games.
We do.
Yes,
absolutely.
Celtic were horrendous in the first half, and we spoke about it at half-time, and we'll speak about it now. They were absolutely horrific. But at half-time, what they had to do is make the changes. And we were talking about 2 and thinking maybe he'll make 2. He made 3 changes, and he realised in the second half he wasn't going to make any more. That was the team to go out there and pull us back into the game, which it did. And it needs to be called out. I mean, just yesterday, they looked at that decision that went in favour of Rangers against Hearts. And, oh, by the way, that was a penalty. Therefore, the whole game hinges on that decision. And it gives you absolutely no satisfaction whatsoever if in 4 or 5 days you're told, oh, by the way, that goal should have counted. It gives you no satisfaction because you don't get the point, right? We've been running a system in Scottish football that's not fit for purpose when it comes to VAR. And it's games like today that you're looking at it and you're thinking, right, Hibs absolutely deserve to be 2-0 up. Celtic pull it back. Great changes at half-time. And 2-2, if you want to talk about dominating halves, Hibs dominated the first, Celtic dominated the second. 2-2, I don't think you come away embarrassed thinking, oh, we really stole that. That's a great comeback at 2 each. However, that's ruined. It's completely ruined by the fact that we have got an etch-a-sketch version of VAR, which is not fit for purpose. Now, you've seen the reaction of the Hibs players when we scored the goal. You've seen the reaction of the Hibs players. That was a goal all day.
It was a goal all day long, yep. I agree.
And that is letting Celtic down. It's letting other teams down. It let Hearts down last week, the way that these things are dealt with. Were we good enough today over the 90 minutes? Of course we weren't, but we shouldn't be getting beat 2-1.
I completely agree, and you're right. Games, results in games can hinge on these type of decisions. So, yeah, it needs to be looked at. I mean, my view on VAR is that it was brought in to try and remove some of the dubiety about refereeing in this country. It was supposed to clarify and support and assist the officials. For me, it's a greyer area than it's ever been now. I've got no idea when a goal goes in. Should I celebrate? Should I not? I've got no idea if someone's offside until 5 minutes after 5 minutes after they're supposedly been in that position. You see fouls that sometimes you see, 20, 30, 40 times during a game, but one time it's looked at VAR and it can either be a red card or can not. So it hasn't cleared anything up for me. The technology, certainly based on what we see on our screens, isn't. Do you know what? I've got to take issue with a comment here, because this is about the 4th or 5th time that this particular individual has called me out for what I'm saying. Man, if you can't be a big enough man to congratulate a winner of a team, that's on you. But don't say I'm talking trite, mate. Okay, because I'm not. All right.
When it comes to a game that you've been beaten in, Chris, right, and you're beaten well, and I think that you're looking at a performance and thinking, well, you know what, we lost that in the first half. That's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is actually we put it right. We put it right the second half. We scored the 2 goals that we needed. But in terms of anything that goes wrong with Celtic, this place is polluted with lurkers who support or have supported 2 different sides over the last 20 years. They're the kind of guys that are going to get blocked. Celtic fans, let's just do this and let's do it and let's disagree and let's have discourse and let's have debate and discussion, but without the insults. That's all we ask. Because I disagree on a regular basis, not only with people in the comments, but people on the show. I'm not going to fall out with anybody. We're all Celtic fans and we all want to win the game. Celtic will win this league. And I'm pretty confident Celtic will win the treble. And there's always days like today where you go away and you think that we're good enough to win and we don't win. And if you're beaten well and you look at that team, I'll tell you what, watch the post-match after the Ibrox defeat. I had no complaints about officiating. What I had a complaint about was the Celtic team and how badly they played. Today's different. First 45, we were rotten. Absolutely rotten.
Yeah, very cool.
And we dedicated 15 minutes of that at half-time to talk about where it went wrong. But after the 90-minute game, 98-minute game, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, well, actually, we deserved a draw. We deserved a draw because of the second half performance. And then we can start picking apart poor performances. And I'm going to bring up some of the comments that are coming through, obviously. And the first one, Pigeon M, this is all on Rodgers. Well, is it all on Rodgers? He's made a few changes because we're having to rotate the squad. And the guys that he's brought in that were then hooked at half-time. Let's have a look at them as individuals. You've got Greg Taylor, Scottish international footballer, who has played a lot of football for Celtic in the last 4 seasons, a seasoned left back for Celtic who's played domestically and in Champions League. And he played really, really poorly in the first half. That's not on Rodgers. That's putting on someone who has largely been our first choice left back since Kieran Tierney left the club. And he was poor. So I don't know how that can be on Rodgers. You look at the goals, the individual errors, the fact that not only does Trusty play them on side, but he can't get, to the header. That's an individual error on a £6 million player who we were praising against Bayern Munich during the week. How's that on Rodgers? You look at McKeown, he was taken off at half-time. Everybody has been fully plaudits for Luke McKeown since he came to the football club. He was poor. Yep. He was poor in the first half. Then you look at Ida. And now I've looked at Ida's 2 seasons, and I looked at last season, the fact that he doesn't come in, we don't win the double. And I look at his season this campaign, and I look at the fact that, even in the Champions League, he's scored goals against top teams. He's performed really, really well. If it wasn't for Ida and Atalanta, we'd have struggled. If it wasn't for Ida against Young Boys, we'd have struggled. So we can't have that and then all of a sudden just say, it's all that Rodgers' fault. I think Rodgers had to make a change at half-time, and he did it, and he was bold. And I think at the end of the game, if you're 2 each, you're talking about the fact that we've actually pulled this out of the fire. So I don't think it's all on Rodgers. I think the manager needs to take responsibility when you get beat, but it's also on the individual players, Chris.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think, we said at the start or at half time, we didn't really see it as being a lack of quality. There's no lack of quality in this team. But what we saw in the first half was a bit of a lack of the right type of attitude, the right approach to the game. Now, the manager will set the team up, he'll give the players instructions, and he's expecting the players to go out there and carry out those instructions. Now, look, everybody's entitled to have a bad game. It can happen. It'll happen to better players than we've got. But what you're looking for, as we said, is that reaction. Now, for me, the manager reacted in the right way. He took players off, maybe of the team, maybe the worst performers in that particular half. He looked at the level of opposition we were playing and how they were setting up. And I think you saw the difference in the second half. We did suddenly, Jota had lots of time and space, was putting in some good crosses, with some good delivery, managed to get himself into a great opportunity to score. Very unfortunate that he didn't. Kuhn, I think, was still getting involved, which was great. Hatate was on a high press. So 3 changes been great. Defensive awareness, I thought, was great from Schlupp. Actually pointed out, we've been looking for that kind of defensive stroke midfield destroyer. Schlupp, for me, looks like the kind of player that could do that job. The way he was sweeping up some of the balls that were coming back in was great. And we weren't under the same type of threat in the second half as we were in the first half. We were absolutely all over Hibs in that second half. And we create 3 or 4 chances, one of which we've said is, should have been a legitimate goal. So we've been let down by the officials there. Look, if you have a good... if you have a good performance in the first half, you don't necessarily have to rely on that decision. But look, at the end of the day, the technology and the referees and the officials are there to try and make the right decision. What we saw there doesn't look like the right decision was made, certainly in the evidence that's been presented. So we're right to be aggrieved on that. So I completely agree that, we're probably cheated in terms of the result. What we temper it with is we say, okay, we go into the next match. We cannot repeat that performance. We know we have to play at a consistent high level. Doesn't matter whether you're playing Hibs, Hearts, Falkirk, Queen's Park, whoever it is. At this club, you have to play consistently high level, or you get punished. Right? It's just the way it is. And when you get punished, you get reactions like this. And I saw Martin Linton there just apologise for the comments. So I'll apologise again for bringing that up. But just it's.
Can we have a virtual hug? A virtual hug, Chris. We all make up. Everybody's good. No drama to see here. Nobody's getting blocked.
It's simply the fact, look, it's an opinion. My opinion is no more credible than anyone else's in the comments. I would never claim it is. But I'm asked a question, I've got to try and respond to it. And I'll never see it as, not giving credit where it's due. So if people don't agree with that, that's fine. But ultimately, I'm as annoyed as anyone else is about the result. But I can also say to, opposition, your team played well. Simple as that.
Look, there's loads of good comments coming through, so let's talk this through here. The post-match during the COVID season was a therapy session. It's not quite as bad as that. Magnet67, you never disagree with Lawrence. I don't think I don't think I ever agree with him. Magnet67, to be fair, but he's still my pal. Walshy, Euro hangover. It happens. Not worried at all. The one thing that I always get from below par performance is you look at the standards that have been set by the gaffer and you think, well, he's not going to accept it. He's not just going to say, all right, lads, Euro hangover, it's fine, no problem. he will not accept it. And I love that. I love that about Brendan Rodgers. When you've got a set of standards where you're meticulous in your approach. I watched something, a wee clip actually recently, probably after the Bayern game, and I think it was maybe on The Athletic, where they were talking about the fact that he's an underrated manager. And I think a big part of that has been this caricature that scorned ex-players have built up of him, Chris, where they tell the belt story and they tell the Spanish stories and all this nonsense. And normally the people telling the stories haven't really actually gone on to achieve much after Rodgers has managed or coached them. But one thing I do love about him is the fact that he's meticulous in his approach. He wants to win every game. He normalised trebles. We've had an invincible season under Brendan Rodgers. So if we're hurting as fans, then he'll be raging as a manager, and that he'll put it right. Lee Nicol, keep them coming. Keep all the comments coming in. It's great to hear your thoughts. Win, lose or draw. I didn't hear you complain about VAR when the Czerny penalty wasn't given. A mere blip. We will still win the league. I've been complaining about VAR since it came in, to be fair, Lee. I think, VAR and as a concept is tremendous, and I think the game needs it to move on. However, having a VAR system that doesn't work, it means it lacks credibility. And I've kept saying this all the way through. I remember experiencing the Champions League version of VAR for the first time and seeing something, because if you actually go back to Ange Postecoglou's second season, there was a lot of goals chopped off, Chris, in our campaign. And the graphics that they showed you left you with no doubt. And then you're just like, no problem. That's a goal. There is no issue. We're not going to argue the toss. So when you hear about VAR coming in, you're thinking, that's what you should be getting, that kind of standard. And we're not. I mean, all we've seen, obviously, is the TV shots of Johnston keeping the ball in. And I'm going to stick to that until somebody shows me a view or a shot or an image where the ball
exists
in its entirety is across the line. So these are the things that, as football fans, frustrate you. And I'm glad to say that I think Rodgers is the same kind of guy, Chris. He hates getting beat. He takes it as a personal slight. Second, by the way, in terms of credit to Hibs, we gave loads of credit to Hibs before the game. We know that they've turned round their season. We know that actually, as a board, they've been pretty brave in not pulling the trigger on David Gray when loads of Hibs fans probably wanted them sacked. And now they're sitting top six, and in the top six they will remain because they've got a really good momentum. One eye on the next round of the Scottish, I think, should be a real concern for us. Second loss of the season, calm down. Who said calm down? Was it outside Fir Park? I think it was Peter Lowell. Phil Smith, shocking fact, Celtic do lose games domestically. Why the need for such an overreaction onto the next game? It's just emotion, Phil. That's what it comes down to. We're football fans, and you get emotional, and you're allowed to. That's what it's all about. And I used to love coming home in the CSC buses all the way back to Fife, and just absolutely, as one of the younger members of the CSC, just listening to all the old guys fawing it. And I've said this before. I won't name him, but I remember one guy who didn't rate Paul McStay, and if we didn't win, or it was a pure performance, he just slagged McStay all the way home to Fife. It's just always been the way, and it's going to continue. Kevin Graham comes in. Euro hangover first half. Yeah. Good second. Never quite done enough, but no complaints at our effort in the second half. We deserved a draw onwards. Bring on the Dons. Aye, thanks for that, Kev. You're leaving it to the last minute, knowing I'm half blind, and then you throw in sheep. And that's what people do. Danielle F. Don't start Taylor again, please. Either Schlupp or Frame. Right. In all seriousness, let's talk about what went wrong today. No, it's not an opportunity to have a go at Greg Taylor. But you know what? Greg Taylor's not going to be here next season. We know that for a fact. We know Greg Taylor's not going to be at the football club next season. There is a chance that Schlupp will be. I know that he's on big wages at Palace. But as Alan Morrison said yesterday, at the end of the season, he won't have a contract at all. So what can Celtic do? And we know that Tierney's coming. But I did see a change, a big change in replacing Taylor with Schlupp against Bayern Munich the other night. And I think I've seen a big change in the second half, and a big part of that was Taylor. What went wrong for Taylor in the first half? I mean, listen, sadly enough, ladies and gents, when you're watching the game, I take notes so that I've got some things to back up my ramblings. And I do. I've got loads of things that Taylor did wrong in the first half. And Rodgers obviously agreed because he got hooked. Now, you've also got to take into account, and it does happen to players, and they tend to admit it after the event, Chris, that if they've not signed a contract, and I'm not saying that they're down in tools, absolutely not, but it does unsettle a player if the future hasn't been stapled down. You're just playing week to week almost. You don't know what's happening. You imagine that was your job in any walk of life, and it unsettles the player. I don't think he was on it. I don't think he was anywhere near it today. We have given Taylor loads and loads of credit for what he has done, mainly domestically, it's got to be said. Transformed under Ange Postecoglou, took to the inverted fullback like a duck to water, gave us 2 brilliant seasons. He's not been that same impact for me under Brendan. And I get what Daniel says, because personally, and I'm not going to say anybody's down to it, I just think Schlupp's the better player. I think he has played better than Greg Taylor. And the second half there, I thought he was excellent as well. And he was quite unlucky, actually, not to draw that red card with Rocky. I thought Rocky was very lucky not to get sent off. So, yeah, the game, you could say we were absolutely wrong, but there are some fine margins. But let's talk about the left-back position. How do you play this moving forward? We've got Hibs again, as I say, in the Scottish Cup. We've got dreams of a treble. I wouldn't be playing Taylor. I agree with Daniel. I wouldn't be playing Taylor if Schlupp is fit.
Yeah, I think Daniel's spot on. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, I think since Schlupp has come in, he's brought an element to the team that's been missing in that left-back position. I think it was even missing under Alex Valle as well when he was here. He brings that defensive assurance. There's a physicality there. There's a positional awareness. There's an energy level. And I think there's a way of reading the game that comes from Schlupp. That's what I've seen as strengths since he's came in. And when that wasn't there today in the first half, it was very evident that Hibs had scouted Taylor, knew exactly where we were vulnerable on that left-hand side and absolutely exploited it. And I think that tells you that teams are recognising that when Greg Taylor plays, for all the stuff we've given him credit for, and you know I'm one of his biggest defenders as a player, he is very weak as a defender. And it's not based on today's example, it's based over multiple examples over the past couple of years. He brings a lot to the table. He brings a lot to the club and the success we've had. You know, some of his distribution, some of his ability to take the game by the scruff of the neck in an attacking sense. But it leaves us vulnerable at the back on that left-hand side. And what we've seen with a player like Schlupp coming in, you know, an established, experienced, high-quality player, is that suddenly we don't look as vulnerable in that area. You know, and I saw Schlupp doing the kind of dirty sweeping up of play today. I saw him contribute to the attack without compromising that defensive position and that defensive integrity. So for me, I agree with Danielle. Schlupp is now, or should be now, the first choice left back. And I say that with no disrespect to Greg Taylor, but Schlupp is a better player. And he's a better player for that core position and what we need. The other reason why I think you have to look at Schlupp playing ahead of Taylor is I think there's always a danger of playing players when their head is potentially either being turned or they are, now I wouldn't use the term downing tools, I think that's disrespectful. I don't believe Greg Taylor or any other professional would do that.
Unsettled.
But unsettled, yeah, absolutely. I think there's an element of unsettled. Greg Taylor, for me, looked rash today, looked like he wasn't in full control. There was no composure about his play. Not something you can always level at him, but it's happening, you know, on a semi-frequent basis. So I think that's a consideration. And look, if two parties can't come to an agreement and Greg Taylor isn't prepared to commit to Celtic, well, for me, if he's not prepared to commit to the club, then the club should essentially stop committing to him. And we should start to look forward at, okay, what do we do for the rest of the season? We've got Schlupp in, so we know he can play, we know he's reliable. Who do we bring in then as a second choice? Do we look at one of the youngsters coming in? Do we look at who else we can give an opportunity to? Does Liam Scales maybe come in and play there? And I'm not saying any of those options are right, but it has to be a consideration. But certainly on a very simplistic level, Schlupp, for me, is the better left back than Greg Taylor at this moment in time.
Yeah, and can I just also point out the goal, Hatate will get the assist, but the move was the 3 subs. It was Schlupp, Jota, then Hatate. Hatate gets the assist. So, you know, the changes that were made at half-time were the right changes. I'm going to bring up quite a few comments at the moment, and then we'll see what else is coming through. Paul McLean comes in to say, just simply getting what we deserve today. I disagree, Paul. I think we deserved a draw. Yeah, and that's fine. Yeah. And that's fine,
second
Paul.
Half turned it around. Yeah.
It's absolutely fine to disagree. I think Celtic were far and away the better team. They gave Hibs a tanking. If I'm going to give them credit, I think Hibs defended well. You know, because you look at some of the chances. You look at Kuhn. many times doing that thing where he keeps drifting left. He's almost running sideways. He's doing that crab thing, right? And he's just looking for that wee gap to strike, Chris. He had one strike on goal today because the Hibs players just crowded him out. So if I'm giving credit, I would say in the second half, Celtic were absolutely dominant, but Hibs defended well. They absolutely did.
Yeah.
Barry O'Sullivan, we needed to do a professional job today, but too many players were not performing. In the first half, I think we could nitpick in the second half, but I think in the first half it was the underperformance of the Celtic player. Pete, I hope we go out to a cup. The Hibs, come on, son. You never hope we go out to any cup to help us try to win the league. We'll win the league. We have no number 9 striker. We don't win leagues. I'm sorry, Pete. I'm going to disagree with that. With respect, I would never want us to get knocked out of anything. And Leslie comes in the same team that played Borussia. Borussia? Oh, that's a flashback. Bayern Munich should have played well. They did. They played the second half, Leslie, and we did pretty well. I'm going to run through all of these comments before we wrap up today. I have genuinely zero doubts about Taylor's commitment. I'm the same. I just think footballers are humans and they can be unsettled. They never admit it at the time. Neither does the manager. It's always after the event. Magnet 67, keep up the great contribution, DD. He's giving you a wee cuddle there, Magnet.
I needed that. Thank you, Magnet. I did need that. I'm surprised he's doing that. It's probably one of the ones I've accidentally blocked in the past. But
accidentally. Right, John McDowell, Ida needs service. He didn't get any. John, again, I think the balls that Ida did get, he wasn't good enough. He wasn't good enough with the service he did get. I think that's my complaint. There was a few occasions where he had an opportunity to open it up. I think, and I was talking earlier on today actually about this, I think Ida is, give him something he doesn't have to think about, and he runs on instinct, and he's a better player. If he's got too much time on the ball and he's got a decision to make, he'll make the wrong decision. There's loads of footballers like that out there. And by the way, that doesn't make him a bad player. And if he plays number 9 for Celtic, he'll score you 20 plus goals a season if he gets a whole season's run at it. But I do think that he suffers from that. So when the Hibs defence today are playing really deep and they're getting loads of men behind the ball, you've got a wee bit more time. They're quite happy for you to have time on the ball. So you try and release it. He often makes the wrong decision. That's my view on Ida.
Yeah, I do think sometimes on occasion his reactions are a wee bit slow, and I think you saw the difference between him and Maeda in the second half. Maeda is on that loose ball, in a second and gets us the goal back today. Ida, who I think deserves a huge amount of praise for a lot of what he's done this season, but I do find that we have to find a way to play to his strengths. And God, how often have we said that about forward players in Celtic this season? But he looks sometimes a little bit slow to get off his heels and really show that burst of pace, which we know he can actually show. He's got good strength and he has got good finishing ability, but I just find his reaction time maybe a bit slow. I don't know if there's a bit of doubt creeps in as well. There was that moment in the first half where he's got a good period of time to square the ball to 2 free Celtic players in the box, and he hesitates and he dawdles on it, and then eventually makes a decision to cross the ball, and the chance is gone. It's cut out, it doesn't reach there. So I think he needs to be a bit sharper on his decision making, a bit sharper on his reactions. And the one thing Rodgers has got in his locker at the moment, he's got the opportunity to mix it up a little bit. You have Maeda, who is high press, gets in around, just makes himself a complete nuisance in the box, chase lost causes. And I think the way we play Maeda is a more natural fit for the striking position at the moment. But I still think Ida is very much a kind of plan B, where, when you are, you need a physical presence up there, you need someone who can maybe help to hold the ball up. You're not necessarily running, looking for someone to run in behind all the time, then, I think that's maybe where Ida comes in. But it's difficult. I find it difficult to be too critical of Ida over the piece, because he picked up the mantle when Kyogo left. He scored a couple of goals, including in Europe. He's done pretty good, but he's still developing as a Celtic player. So I think there's still a lot of improvement he can make to his game. And I think, there is a responsibility on, some of our players, both in midfield and on the wing, to improve their decision making, and play them into the right opportunities. So it's not an individual weakness. There's a collective responsibility to try and make these players, play to the best possible standard.
And again, listen, guys, it's one game.
It is.
In a season where we have made European progress and in a season that we're going for a treble, I'm not going to overreact about a defeat. We're disappointed, of course we are. And there's nothing wrong with looking at individual performances. The gaffer agreed with the three guys that we've highlighted because all three of them were taking off. Shine Schlupp in a heartbeat magnet. He, for me, is Kieran Tierney's backup next season. I'd move Ida on ASAP. Green smoke. He ain't a first player. Right, we've paid 8.5, rising to 9.5 on this guy who scored the winning goal in the Scottish Cup final last season, who scored important goals at Ibrox, a double against Motherwell, a double against Hibs. He played the game of his life against Kilmarnock when we won the league. You move into this season, right, and it's his first campaign at Champions League level. He scores in his first game against Slovan Bratislava.
Yeah.
Right, he forces the goal against Young Boys. It qualifies us through. He plays the game of his life this season against Atalanta away from home in the isolated striker position. He scores 2 goals against Aston Villa. Come on, you're no moving either on. What we need to do is we need to bring in another striker. That's what we need to do. And then you're looking at some really good options up top. You're looking at Maida, who can come into the centre if he needs to. You're looking at just about every winger being able to switch. You've seen Kuhn switching right to left today. And you've got Jota, not yet up at full speed, but once he does, you know what he can do. I think we just basically need to bring in another striker, and Ida remains. And you know what? I've got a lot of belief in Ida, and I still think between now, mark my words, between now and the end of the season, there's going to be big goals where after the game we're going, oh, some player Ida. But I do think his issue is when he's got time to make a decision. Yeah. He's an instinct player, and there's been plenty of them. My ball, some of the balls in the second half would have suited Ida. Yeah, I mean, amount of times Jota got the ball into the box. We've also got Stephen McIntyre. We've got 2,300 live. I'm not cutting you off. We're going through these comments. Chris might have to go for his dinner. As a Greenock man, I support Greg and Luke 100%. So does Colin Watt. But if Greg's head is out the door, his body should be too. All said we played well today. The gaffer was out early, which signals he had a go at the boys. Yeah, again, you know, I really do like listening to his post-match stuff. I don't think it's all filler. I think that he actually gives you answers that have got some kind of depth to them. Jamie Murphy, Ida should have passed the coup in the first half. That's because, Jamie, he had time to think. Honestly, he's an instinct player. Boheed Bob, and you come. Joy in Europe. If a draw at Bayern is joy, it's probably going to result in the odd slip at home. Need to accept that in years ahead. However, that was a poor. That's the thing, right? We didn't get through the tie in Bayern, but we gave a brilliant account of ourselves. We gave a really good performance. Do you swap that for a win today, Easter Road? You know, you can ask all these different things.
The only thing I would say to that though is, you have to maintain your level. You know, I know that Bayern, you almost motivates the players itself by virtue of what the tie is. But you can't let the levels drop at your next domestic game, because you've still got to, you know, if we weren't as many points ahead as we are at the moment, you know, then this becomes a much tougher result. The players have a responsibility to keep the levels up, irrespective of who the opposition is and what the occasion is. So I think that's where the manager will be frustrated. It's like you can't rest on your laurels after a game like Bayern. You have to keep the levels up.
And the gaffer should be able to make 3 changes. And remain at that standard. I totally get. I totally agree with you. Henrik McLarson, Taylor is underperforming. Fact, nothing wrong with criticism where it is due. The constant moaning about Taylor, says Lovat Scouts, is exhausting. Well, I go back to Henrik's point. It's you're watching and you're observing a player who's not at the top of his game. And if he was, we wouldn't look for fault in him. The linesman gave the goal, says P. O'Neill, but Muir didn't. Alan Muir on VAR. You know that you're going to have problems if it goes to VAR when he's on it. Don't disagree with Acsom pundits or you get blocked.
Can I block him?
Tumbleweed. That, Marty C, simply is not true. The only people that get blocked are those who come on and are pretty clearly still using pagers like Stevie One. Stevie, come on. Is that the best you can do? You know, how did you smuggle that phone into yourself? Right. That's the type of people. That's the type of people that get blocked, lads. Celtic fans, no, that doesn't happen. Joe O'Donnell, all that midweek goodwill gone. It's not though, Joe. It's not. I mean, you know, at the end of the season, when we look at what we've done and we look at progress and European progress, that's not changed because we went to Easter Road and got beat 2-1. If we draw the game 2-2, we're sitting here going, look, a draw's no ideal, but it's fine after a European game, and you're millimeters away from getting that. It goes to VAR. It's the wrong decision, and unless they can show us a quality image that shows that the ball is completely over the line, the entire circumference of said ball is over the line, then I'm going to stick to that. Hibs defended valiantly. I agree with you. And Sean Fairley's in on the YouTube. If we didn't get VAR, even this one, Rangers would get far more decisions than they already get. And on the reverse, we would lose out far more. Yeah, but let's do it right, Sean. Let's do it right. Don't go in half-hearted. I've said even this season, how much is the all singing, all dancing VAR cameras? How much does that cost to install that at a football stadium? Celtic should have done it at the beginning of the campaign for tactical and data purposes. And every single time we get hauled up to the SFA beaks because we say that they're incompetent, produce our own evidence and say, well, actually, we can prove that it was onside or the ball was in the park. Because this training data that we've got through these brilliant cameras show it. That's what I would have done. And you would have scared them into actually maybe investing in a better system. AJSC Tech, Jota has to square it, doesn't he? A bit selfish and egotistical that. What would Larsson have done? Well, you know this, right? He only should have squared it because it was cleared off the line and it was a brilliant clearance.
Yeah.
When you watch it back, right, all I'm going to say here, talking about Hibs defending valiantly, right? Look at the Hibs player in front of it. So between Jota and Kuhn, that there is a very, very, very thin lane to get that ball through. If Jota tries that, we're on here saying he should have struck the ball. He should have taken the shot. So, he done. I thought he did really well, Jota. He did really well to create the chance, and it was a brilliant clearance.
Yeah, I thought so. When I saw it, first of all, I thought, God, Kuhn's in really good space. And then it took the couple of replays for me to see it. I thought Kuhn was, as I said earlier, was too static in his movement. I didn't think he actually he moved into it to give Jota enough, as you say, enough of a channel to get the ball into. I also think at that point, Jota's beat the keeper, right? He's actually beaten the keeper. The keeper's, he's bypassed the goalkeeper. So in his mind, he's essentially got an empty net. I know that Rocky was on the line, but he's got essentially an empty net. I think at that point, I would rather our players show a degree of selfishness and just try and get the ball into the net there, because I think to pass it, what happens if you don't get the pass right? Then everybody says, why didn't he hit the shot? And there were a couple of occasions throughout that second half where I was getting annoyed. I thought Hatate should have hit the shot at one point. I thought there was a couple of players I thought, just hit the shots.
Too many times.
Too many touches, too many little back heels where I'm just like, go direct. So I can't criticise that particular moment in Jota. I mean, look, if it goes in, we're talking about probably one of the goals of the season, right? Because he's shown pace, he's shown strength, he's shown skill, he's dribbled it around the keeper. It was a brilliant build-up. So I'm not going to denigrate the guy for, one possible what-if decision, in hindsight, because it would be unfair. For me, he earned the right to take the shot, and we were just unlucky that he didn't get it in. So, no, I mean, to be honest, it was one of probably the few real moments of excitement in that second half. So.
And he created it himself. You're right.
He did.
Richie, you're in on the YouTube. Anyone who is watching this on YouTube, give us a big thumbs up. It helps with the algorithm. And subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. 56% of people that view don't subscribe. So get subscribing. We've got 32,000 subscribers at the moment. We want to get 40 by the end of the year. And obviously, it gives you the notifications every time we come on. Not just the matchday streams and the daily bulletins, but our Friday night show and loads of other content we have in store. Mr. C, not sure if you were part of that tremendous band from the 90s, The Shaman, but Taylor is responsible, apparently, for global atrocities or some folk. Listen, I think he was taking it to firing line a wee bit at halftime. I think he was having a bit of a horror show. He could have been sent off. He was giving the ball away willy-nilly. Wasn't he protecting the ball enough? And his position wasn't great. Neither was Trusty's, by the way. He can't avoid criticism in that respect. But I do think it would be best for everyone concerned at the moment. And I don't mean, let him train with the third team. I just think Schlupp, for me, in terms of performances, is your first choice. I would suggest. Thanks everybody for getting involved. Is there any other comments? Let's have a wee look here, seeing how we've gone over the 30 minutes already. Here we go. My ball says he was entitled. Jota was entitled to do what he did. Great to have him back. Absolutely. Plunge McNugget. Take our frustration out on the Dons. Don't want to upset any Aberdeen fans tuning in. I did tip you for second in the league. That's not going to happen, of course. But honestly, it's one of the ones where we're all gutted as Celtic fans to lose any game, Chris. I mean, see, even when we've won the league, and you've got sometimes a few games after you've mathematically won the league, I don't want us to get beaten in games. Never mind a game today when we're still trying to win the league.
I'm the same. You can see it. It's I had to smile at some people saying, "God, you guys looked really glum right after the Bayern Munich. It was a great result, but we went live like 20 seconds after the Bayern goal had gone in, so it was really hard to not feel it at that time. And that's because, look, we're fans. At the end of the day, we're fans, and I want Celtic to win every game. I never get tired of Celtic winning. I never will get tired of Celtic winning. I don't mind, as I've said earlier, giving credit where it's due. I think if we've, been beaten or well beaten today, I don't think was the case. I think I gave Hibs credit for, how they performed in the first half. As I said on a counterpoint, I didn't like some of the dark arts they employed. I've never seen a game stopped for a player getting cramped before. I thought that was only for a head injury, and I've never seen players being congratulated by their teammates for falling over. So there are elements to the play that I didn't enjoy today, but what you want to go back to the old Jockstein, off quote, say, take decisions out of the, take refereeing decisions and how the other team plays out of the equation. Win the game yourself. Do as much as you can. Really easy to say, very cliche, very, probably a klaxon going to go off. But ultimately, you've just got to play at a consistent level and don't make these decisions meaningful over the course of a season.
Well, apparently, our very own Brendan Rodgers has brought up VAR in the post-match.
So
I'm really looking forward to hearing what he has to say about it, because the Jockstein quote is often rolled out at times like this. He also said that when Celtic are concerned, justice is not always forthcoming.
That's right.
And that's the one that isn't used as often. Couple of wee comments before we go. Rodgers is blaming VAR, says Lucy. I'll be having a wee look at that as soon as we're finished here. And Craig McMicken says, we have Aberdeen on Tuesday night to right today's wrongs. Absolutely. There's always a game just around the corner. And we will be watching that. We'll be covering it, as always, 30 minutes before kickoff. We'll be back on Monday at the usual time of 12:30. And also next week, we are on the road. We are on the road with a man who played in a European final for Celtic, one of only 30 players who have represented this football club in a European final. We did that, obviously, in Seville in 2003. And that man is Johan Mjällby. I'm the guy that needs to sit on a stage with Big Dolph. It's not easy sitting on a stage with guys like him and Charlie Mulgrew. Thursday, the 27th of February, it's Thursday at Gracie's. There are a few tickets available, and they're £15, and they're underneath this video. Click the link, come along, and you don't have to give Chris a virtual cuddle. You can give him a real one if you so desire. Chris is laughing in the background. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved, and thank you once again, Chris McElwain, for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.